We can start with the Mets first. What are you
Sure.
looking for most with just a complete reversal, of course, in organizational strategy, organizational structure? Sandy Alderson, Steve Cohen at the helm, as we have beaten to death on this program and how great that is for all of the Mets fans. But realistically, with the money and the resources that they have at their disposal, where should they be targeting first this offseason?
Realistically, everything's on the table. This team is going to be no, I'm not going to be delusional, even though I am at times. First of all, let me just say, I haven't had the chance to say this. I don't think I've had the chance to say it yet on the air about the Mets. I usually rant about the Jets on here, but I am beyond thrilled. I think, Nick, you were there the night that the Mets sale was finalized. I was pumped, and I'm still pumped, so I'm beyond thrilled with this team. But if we're going to go specific moves that I want them to make, I think the first one that I'd like to see is JT Realmuto. That's what I want. Wilson Ramos at catcher had a good first year with the Mets. Last year was not that good. There's some hesitation that we're hearing about Realmuto maybe not wanting to come to a big market like New York. Look, I want this guy. He is a 5-tool player. He can run, he can hit, he can catch, he can do it all. He's the kind of guy that I want. I also want Trevor Bauer, but I'm a little skeptical of that kind of personality in the New York market. But at the end of the day, you get Trevor Bauer, then you got a rotation with Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Trevor Bauer, and then the rookie David Peterson going into the second year. So I would target Realmuto. I would target Trevor Bauer. I want Francisco Lindor. I want the world. I want everybody. I said I wasn't going to be delusional. I don't care. I want everyone. Steve Cohen and his beautiful money. He is now the richest owner in baseball, $13 billion. This man has come to save this franchise, come to save the Met fan like me. I want everything. Also, DJ LeMahieu wouldn't be bad. Your thoughts?
Alex Wools, our producer, knows the stat that I'm about to reiterate here on these airwaves. In 2019, the last full season in Major League Baseball, of the top 5 teams in payroll, 3 of them missed the playoffs. So the Mets can spend all they want, but it's about getting the right pieces in place and spending the money wisely, because at some point it becomes counterproductive to spend because of the luxury tax and the amount of money that you will have to give to other organizations throughout Major League Baseball. Now, I don't think that that's going to be a problem with the Mets, at least initially, because they don't have such a ridiculous payroll right now. And if Cohen tests the limits on that, they'll be fine to deal with that in the near term. I agree that these are the top free agents and guys that the Mets should be targeting. I agree that Realmuto should be priority number 1, although it may be difficult to lure him from Philadelphia, where it sounds as though he seems intent on staying, although you never know. And again, if Cohen type of offer, money, as we know in Major League Baseball, always talks. Bauer is an interesting case, but I think the Mets can be okay without adding another starting pitcher of that caliber. They can get by and be a good enough contender with deGrom at the top, as good as it gets, with Syndergaard and with Stroman, and adding somebody who is better than Michael Wacha or Rick Porcello. They certainly have to replace those two and figure out something at the back end, but it doesn't have to necessarily be Trevor Bauer for them to be successful. Where I would look for them, in addition to the catcher spot, and potentially now if they would be in play for Francisco Lindor, although I don't know that the Mets have enough, certainly the money to pay him, but enough in the prospects that Cleveland would demand to get back, because Cleveland is so budget tight that they can't afford to take a discount or something along those lines and not get full return for Francisco Lindor. They just can't afford to do it. So that to me is the wild card. And then you're talking about how the rest of the pieces fit in their infield. There was a report today that potentially Ahmed Rosario would try out playing in the outfield maybe and see how that would go. But I think overall there is the starting pitching where they can be okay. They could use some upgrades potentially at catcher and elsewhere, maybe at shortstop. But they got to do something about that bullpen, because that bullpen has really not been conducive to them winning games the last couple of years. And I don't know if it's somehow a new way of pitching for Edwin Diaz, a new mentality, if he can somehow turn it around or become some semblance of the pitcher he was in Seattle. I don't want to say, oh, the Mets should go out and get a new pitching coach, because I don't know that that's necessary for anyone to have a change of scenery other than Edwin Diaz. Like, that's not fair to the staff that they have there right now. But something's got to change, and if not, they're going to have to really go all in on the bullpen, because that to me is the other issue here. And it's in part a chicken and the egg conversation, because at times their bullpen was a lot weaker last year because of the holes that they had at the back end of their starting rotation when you take out Gesellman and you take out Seth Lugo. But to me, they need to get depth in the bullpen, and that to me is where to start in addition to Realmuto, and see where things go from there. That's my perspective on it. But in addition to that, that bullpen seems to me to be a pretty big concern.
I totally agree. Look, there have been many a game where it seemed like the Mets had it, they had it easy. They were going to win this one, and the bullpen blew it. Now, I do think you can address some of your bullpen issues by adding depth in the rotation. So moving, like you said, moving Lugo. First of all, Lugo was really he was very up and down in the rotation. So I think if you get another quality starter, you can move him back into the bullpen. If you got another starter, you can move Matz into the bullpen. Now, I know Matz, he's really dead set on being a starter, but hey, look, you're under contract. You're going to do what the coach tells you to do. Maybe going out and get someone like a Brad Hand. I don't know. I think the Mets, this is not going to be an overnight fix for the Mets. I think, first off, you got to bank on, this is the other thing about relievers, and I don't know if you feel the same way. Relievers are a lot like kickers in the NFL. Year to year, very hard to predict how good they're going to be. One year they could be off the charts. The next year they would look at Edwin Diaz. 2018 with the Mariners, off the charts. 2019 with the Mets, he was terrible. This year he was great. I mean, it's just so hard to find a consistent reliever. I would just take the approach of the starters. You can get a little more. I'm a little more confident in the starter market than I am in the reliever market. So I would go about it approaching it. Let's build the bullpen. Build the rotation. Whoever doesn't fit in the rotation, we're going to move to the bullpen and go from there. With the Mets, and I'll say this, like you said, money is not the end all be all. They're not going to fix this franchise overnight by spending money. And I think the great thing about Steve Cohen is he has said adamantly that it's not about the money. He was on Baseball Night New York on SNY just a little bit before our show. And he was, talking about different things. And he said he wanted to make New York, the Mets, a place to come, not just for the paycheck, which I think speaks to it all. We have to build a team that's not just about money. Look at the Washington football team. They got it's a very similar situation with them. They have Dan Snyder, an owner who was a fan. He spends a lot of money. They're terrible. I know it's the NFL. It's a little different, but it's got to be about more than the money. Now, I'm already seeing good things. You have a guy like Sandy Alderson who built the Mets team that went to the World Series in 2015. He also drafted Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Dominic Smith, guys that I love that are great, Michael Conforto. And they're investing heavily in the analytics department. Now, I'm not a big fan of Moneyball. But it's just a simple, I don't like, for example, what they did with Blake Snell in the World Series. That's like ridiculous. But using analytics to find those diamonds in the rough, like a Gio Urshela with the Yankees. The Mets had one of the lowest ranked, I think it was last in Major League Baseball in analytics for the Will Pollins side of the team. And now Cohen has seen that that's an issue. He's going to invest in that, and he's going to try to turn the team around the smart way. So I think he's got a multi-pronged approach that I've been impressed by.
Yeah, that's certainly where it starts. It's about shifting the culture and the attitude within the organization, about doing some things smarter. And I agree with your point about relievers, not necessarily in kickers, because I think that there are more Justin Tuckers who are consistent year in, year out in terms of major league relievers. There are guys who are going to come in and shove and be really great. The problem is with the number of innings that they pitch. You're talking about guys who will throw at max maybe 100 or so innings a season. There is certainly a greater volatility of success or failure compared to starting pitchers who you're talking about are going to pitch 200 plus innings if they are going to be able to pitch a full season.